Ask WrestleTalk. Jeff Greenwood asks, out of all the brutal weapon gimmicks I've seen, I've always thought staples to be the worst. Are they totally genuine? And if so, how do you go about getting a staple out of your skin? It depends on who's involved. In many cases, the gun is gimmicked and the wrestlers are simply selling the effects of phantom staples, which is really no different to selling a punch or any other move. However, some of the more extreme deathmatch wrestlers over the years have certainly been known to use real staples, often highlighting the fact with spots involving stapling something to an opponent's body. Look no further than the bout between Sami Callihan and Jimmy Havoc at Impact vs the UK last September, where pages of this very magazine were stapled to Havoc's head and arms. So how do you get them out? There's no trick to it. You simply pull them out as gently as possible. Make no mistake, it's an extremely painful process. Ryan Sweeney asks, did former on-screen WWE president Jack Tunney have any actual powers behind the scenes? No, it was just a character. Tunney was employed by Vince McMahon in return for helping him promote the Toronto territory, which he and his family had been running as Maple Leaf Championship Wrestling for decades. Like many aging promoters of the day, the Tunneys saw the writing on the wall and opted to work with the renegade McMahon rather than against him. Jack Tunney was given the on-camera president role simply because he fit the bill. He looked and sounded like an authority figure. In 1995, when McMahon had learned all of the tricks of the trade about the Toronto scene from Tunney, he unceremoniously dumped him. Tunney was removed from the payroll and replaced as president by longtime employee Gorilla Monsoon. Ian Turnbull asks, how many Super J-Cups have there been and who were the winners and runners-up in each tournament? Not counting the upcoming 2019 edition, there have been 6 in total, spanning from 1994 to 2016, in addition to 2 British J-Cups held by Revolution Pro in 2017 and 2018. Conceived by Jushin Liger, the idea behind the Super J-Cup was to bring together the best junior heavyweight wrestlers on the planet from a variety of promotions around the world. The first tournament was hosted by New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1994, taking place on a single night in front of a sellout crowd of 11,500 people. The event was a smash success. Many industry commenters at the time hailed the inaugural tournament as the single greatest night of wrestling ever held. Every one of the 13 matches on offer delivered, and many of the bouts on the card were strong contenders for Match of the Year come award season. The final between tournament winner Wild Pegasus, Chris Benoit, and the Great Sasuke was particularly spellbinding. A battle for the ages, the clash was universally acclaimed as one of the greatest junior heavyweight matches of all time. The success of the tournament led to the inevitable sequel in 1995, although it was held in the same building, Sumo Hall, in front of another sellout crowd. This time around, it was Wrestle Association R, War, that hosted the event. Once again, it was very, very good, albeit unable to reach the heady height of the previous year's competition. The biggest criticism was the choice to push the limited Gedo, the current New Japan booker, to the final. Although his performances against Masayoshi Motegi, Don Callis, Wild Pegasus, and tournament winner Jushin Liger were reasonable enough, they were not the same level as other participants. Following a 5-year hiatus, the Great Suzuki's Michinoku Pro revived the tournament in 2000. Split over 2 nights, the competition was unable to draw the same crowds as the previous events, with 4,159 attending the first night in Sendai and around 8,000 watching the second at Sumo Hall. A combination of MPW's waning popularity and a comparative lack of major stars were cited as the reason for the lower attendances. One thing that did remain the same from the previous tournament was the winner, Jushin Liger, who once again emerged victorious, defeating Shima, now of AEW and OWE fame, in the final. 4 years later, Osaka Pro Wrestling held the 4th edition of the Super J-Cup on February 21st, 2004, in front of a healthy 6,800 fans at Osaka-jo Hall. In reducing the tournament to a single night, OPW also slimmed down the field to just 8 competitors. For the first time since its inception, Liger was not involved. He was on the card though, wrestling in a non-tournament 6-man tag match in the show's semi-final spot, where he teamed with Jinsei Shinsaki and Super Deflin in a loss to Shima, Heat, and Kenta, also known as Hideo Itami. Noah and New Japan star Naomichi Marufuji was the victor this time around, defeating Takehiro Murahama in an exciting final that, while good in its own right, was not a patch on the mid-90s tournament bouts. NJPW took over the reins of the Super J-Cup for the first time in 15 years in 2009. New Japan increased the number of participants back to 16 and held the event on back-to-back nights at Kurikan Hall in front of a sold-out crowd of 2,020 people. Liger returned to the competition but fell to 2004 winner Marufuji in the first round. Indeed, it was Marufuji who went on to win the tournament again, tying Liger as the only other 2-time winner when he defeated Prince Devitt, otherwise known as Finn Balor, in a superb final that was up there with the 1994 4 Classic. The tournament went on its longest break to date following that, returning after a 7-year hiatus in 2016. New Japan were the hosts again. The number of participants and nights remained the same, but this time there was a 1-month gap between the first round and the final 3 rounds. Liger was involved again, remarkably enough given it was 21 years since the first tournament, defeating Ita in the opening round before losing to Taichi via countout in the second round. It was recent NXT signing Kushida who ended up walking away with a trophy, defeating Yoshinobu Kanemura in a solid yet unspectacular final. Liger was also involved in the 2 Rev Pro British J Cup tournaments, rolling back the years to win the 4-way final of 2017's one-night event in London over Kushida, Marty Scurll and Will Ospreay. Liger returned for the 2018 tournament, held over 2 nights in Manchester as part of Rev Pro's shows at Wrestling MediaCon. Liger defeated Aussie Open's Carl Fletcher on the first night, but fell to the eventual winner El Phantasmo in the second round. Phantasmo beat Kushida, Rich Swann and Rocky Romero in an entertaining final to win the trophy. Karen O'Malley asks, how many women from WWE's female talent show Diva Search ended up wearing championship gold in the promotion? The answer is 5. Candice Michelle, who competed in the 2004 tournament but did not make the final 10, won the WWE Women's Championship from Melina at Vengeance Night of Champions on June 24, 2007. Michelle's first and only reign lasted a little over 3 months. Another 2004 Diva Search participant, Michelle McCool, enjoyed more success. The future Mrs. Undertaker won her first women's title on June 28, 2009 from Melina and enjoyed a lengthy spell as champion, holding the belt for over 200 days. She had a second spell with the title shortly after her first ended with a defeat to Mickie James at Royal Rumble 2010. McCool also became the first ever Divas champion, defeating Natalya at the Great American Bash 08 to snare the gold. As she held the women's title, McCool enjoyed 2 stints as champion. Michelle's Lay Cool tag partner and 2006 Divas Search winner Layla L defeated Beth Phoenix in a Texas Tornado handicap match on SmackDown on May 11, 2010 to become the last ever holder of the old WWE Women's Championship. Layla also wore the Divas title, winning it from Nikki Bella at Extreme Rules 2012. However, Layla did not beat Nikki to capture the gold. She pinned Brie Bella after the sisters had attempted to pull off Twin Magic. Obviously, it didn't go down too well. Layla's 2006 competition rival Maryse was the second holder of the Divas title, dethroning Michelle McCool on the December 26, 2008 episode of SmackDown. Maryse held onto the strap for a little over half a year, coming a cropper to Mickie James at Night of Champions 2009. Maryse won the gold again the following year, beating Gail Kim in a tournament final on Raw to win the vacant belt after Melina had given up the title due to injury. The most successful Divas champion of all the Divas Search contestants was 2007 winner Eve Torres, who wore the strap 3 times between 2010 and 2013. Kenny Robertson asks, is it true that The Undertaker almost joined WCW in 1996? If he had, would he have been able to use his Undertaker name and gimmick? Remarkably, it is true. With his contract up for renewal in the summer of 1996 and the WWF appearing to be a sinking ship at the time, Mark Calaway was in serious discussions with WCW about switching sides. The talks were at such an advanced stage that 1 week prior to SummerSlam 96, where Undertaker was set to square off with Mankind in a Boiler Room Brawl match, agent Michael Hayes told Mankind there was a good chance that the bout would not happen. The belief within the WWF was that Calaway was going to WCW to become the latest ex-WWF star to join the New World Order. Obviously, Calaway changed his mind and re-signed with the WWF, where he has remained for 23 years since. Had Calaway gone to WCW, there is no chance he would have been able to portray the Undertaker persona that made him famous. The WWF and WCW were already embroiled in a lawsuit over the latter using Kevin Nash and Scott Hall in a manner the WWF felt was too similar to the Diesel and Razor Ramon gimmicks they had portrayed in their promotion. Calaway most likely would have used his real name and became something resembling his 2000 to 2003 American Badass character had he gone to Atlanta. Kelly Francis asks, can you list the results from the first TNA weekly pay-per-view in 2002? Certainly. The Flying Elvises, Jimmy Yang, Jorge Estrada and Sonny Siaki defeated AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn and Low-Ki in a spotty but entertaining opener. Although the results seem incredible in hindsight, it was perfectly viable at the time. T.O. beat Hollywood in a mercifully short minis match. The Johnsons, Richard and Rod Johnson, 2 men dressed as giant penises, beat the somewhat random combo of James Storm and Psychosis in a worthless encounter. The Dubs, Bo and Stan, beat Christian York and Joey Matthews, otherwise known as Jerry Mercury, in another underwhelming tag outing. Ken Shamrock and Malice were the last 2 men remaining in a lengthy and tiresome gauntlet match. Shamrock then defeated Malice in a shoddy singles encounter with a belly-to-belly suplex, of all things, to become the promotion's world champion. Andros asks, has WWE ever got desperate and rehired Vince Russo since he departed the promotion in 1999? Should they do so again to solve the current ratings problems? Almost. Still believing that Russo offered something creatively, WWE brought him back in mid-2002 to prevent him from going to the newly formed TNA and helping them get off the ground. In a meeting with the creative team, which was headed by Stephanie McMahon at the time, Russo tore into WWE's television product, pointing out everything that was wrong with it before laying out elaborate plans to reboot the failed WCW invasion angle. What Russo failed to realize was that by burying the product, he was burying Stephanie, which did not sit well with Vince McMahon. The WWE chief called Russo the next day and told him it was not going to work out and he would not be offered a position on the team. Russo was instead offered a $125,000 per annum consultancy role, a way of keeping him on the books but giving him no actual power, which he turned down in favour of a lower paid head writer's job with TNA. As for whether WWE should consider bringing him back today, ordinarily we would say no, but WWE's television output is at such a low ebb that anything different or outside the box would be a positive at this point. Russo proved in 1998 and 1999 that he was capable of producing compelling television when his million-and-one ideas were put through a filter, i.e. someone else making the final decisions. Whether he would be able to push through his ideas the way WWE Creative is currently set up is another matter. Regardless, it's never going to happen. Liam Anderson finally asks, what are the mid-2000s team La Resistance up to nowadays? 42-year-old Sylvain Grenier still wrestles sporadically on the Canadian independent circuit, occasionally teaming with former La Resistance team member Rene Dupree. Dupree is far more active, wrestling regularly across Canada and Europe. American Rob Conway has carved out a reasonable career for himself since leaving WWE in 2007. He enjoyed 2 stints as NWA World Champion between 2013 and 2015, with his reigns placing him 12th on the all-time combined reigns list ahead of NWA legends such as Terry Funk, Sting, Barry Windham, and Ricky Steamboat. He has since returned to WWE as a semi-regular trainer at the Performance Center.